So you want to learn how to sew. You're in the right place. If you've never sewn before, or you've sewn a little bit but you want to learn how to use sewing patterns, then this video is for you. I will show you the basics of sewing, how to use a sewing machine, and walk you through how to use digital sewing patterns so you can start working on your me-made wardrobe. We'll be making bunting today. The pattern is completely free and it is linked below. I call it bunting, that's what I call it in the pattern, but I know some people call it like a triangle, garland, banner, whatever you want to call it, we'll be making it today. The triangle bunting is one of my patterns in my dinner party bundle that will include multiple bunting options with letters, symbols, numbers, as well as table mats, coasters, and an apron. So if you want to get that, it is also linked below. But let's get started with this one. Inside your free bunting pattern, you'll find written and illustrated instructions. Even if you plan on only following the YouTube video, I would really recommend you go through it to kind of see what my digital sewing patterns have. There's a list of supplies, equipment that you need, the kind of fabrics you want to use, dimensions, all that kind of stuff. There's also going to be how to use a projector format and how to use an A0/large format file, but I'll be walking you through how to use A4/US letter sizes today. I am so excited that you're here. Let's get started. Here is everything you will need to make this bunting. First and foremost, your fabric. You can truly use whatever you want, as long as it's not too thick that you won't be able to turn it inside out. Stretch fabrics like jerseys are more difficult to sew with, so I wouldn't recommend. I am using a cotton bedsheet from IKEA. I would also avoid any directional fabrics, though the instructions do include how to place your patterns if your fabric is directional. In terms of dimensions, it truly depends on how many bunting panels you want, but each panel is about 12 inches tall, so you want fabric that is at least 12 inches wide. Then you want sewing thread that matches your binding. A good thread brand is Goodeman, but here I'm using my serger thread because I've run out of white thread. In terms of binding, you want double fold so that the raw edges are tucked into the middle of the binding and then fold itself in half again. Mine is 1/2 inch double fold binding, which means when unfolded, it is 2 inches, which is about 5 centimeters. If you're only able to find single fold binding, you can use your iron to fold it in half and give it a good press. You can also make your own binding, and I will show you how to do that at the end of the video. You will need a tape measure or a ruler, a friction pen or chalk. Friction pens work great on fabric because they disappear easily with the heat of an iron, but please be careful because they don't always fully disappear, especially on lighter fabrics. But don't worry about this too much if this is your first project. You will need fabric scissors and paper scissors. I'm going to be so honest, I use the Japanese Dollar Tree scissors to cut both my fabric and paper for years. You do not need anything fancy, and you will also need some tape and pins. The printed home files are designed to work for both US letter and A4 sizes. The most important thing to remember when printing sewing patterns is that you're printing at 100% scale. My computer automatically makes it 111%, so I always make sure to go back and change that. Make sure you're only printing on one side of the paper. The first page will have a 2 inch by 2 inch and a 5 centimeter by 5 centimeter square that you can use to test your scaling. If, for whatever reason, your squares are bigger than they should be, then you should lower the percentage. If the squares are too small, then you should increase the percentage to make the files a little bit bigger on the paper. This particular pattern takes up 2 sheets of paper. The actual pattern instructions will show you how it's laid out, but this should be pretty straightforward. The gray numbers in the paper will tell you what order they should be in. The key to print at home patterns is to align them really well. Mine will have a black diamond between each paper piece. Taking one of your sheets, cut along the border where that diamond is cut in half. You can lay that on the next paper's border and make the 2 half diamonds into one. I like to tape the front of the pattern where the pattern is outlined and then turn it over and tape the entire back. You can then cut out the pattern. I'll be using both of these pattern pieces as I am also filming some promo content for Instagram, but they're the same shape. We can now move on to cutting the pattern. You want to take the flat side of your pattern, the one that is perpendicular to the dotted line going down the pattern, and line it up against one of your edges. There are 2 straight grain edges to your fabric, one that goes along the length of your fabric and one that is perpendicular to that. These are called the length grain and cross grain respectively. This pattern doesn't really need to be cut very precisely on the length or cross grain, but it may be important to note in future patterns, so I just wanted to mention it. More complicated patterns will have arrows indicating the grain lines. There are many ways to cut fabric using a pattern piece, but I'll be showing you the 2 main ways. The first is using pins. You can pin your paper pattern onto the fabric, dipping a pin through both layers of your paper and your fabric to hit your table and then back up again to come out. Once you have the pins going around the perimeter of your pattern, use scissors to cut against the edge of your pattern piece. Make sure your pins are on the inside of the pattern and aren't protruding out. Another method is to use a marking tool like a friction pen, regular pen, or chalk to mark around the perimeter of your pattern to imprint the shape of the pattern onto your fabric. Then use your scissors to cut on the drawn line. The method you use is down to preference and the pattern piece. I suggest you try both of them to see which one you prefer. The triangles are made in a way so that you can offset them upside down like this in the image here. This is why directional fabrics are a pain to use. If you're marking around your pattern, you can mark all of them at once and then cut them all out. I would also recommend folding your fabric in a way that you're cutting through multiple layers scissors to make this process a little bit quicker. For each bunting panel, you will need 2 pieces of the triangles. Take them and face them right sides together and use the pins to pin them together along the 2 long sides of the triangle. Pins are best placed perpendicular to the raw edge of your fabric. This will make pulling them out later easier. Now onto your sewing machine. Every sewing machine from every brand will be a little bit different, so I'll walk you through mine, but if you have a different one, I highly recommend you read or watch the manual to understand how it works. I have a Brother FS70WT. The W2 just means it came with a wide table, which I really recommend. The first thing to set up are your cords. My foot pedal looks like this and plugged into the back. The cord to power the machine plugs into the side and next to the switch, and that gets plugged into a socket. Turning on the machine with the switch on the side, my LED screen lights up along with a light where my sewing machine sews. The hand wheel is on the right hand side, but most of the sewing will be done with these buttons or the foot pedal. Above the LED screen are all kinds of stitching. We'll only be using a regular stitch, so there's no need to change any of the settings, but this is good to know for future reference. The toggles on the right hand side allow you to change the length and the width of your stitch. The toggles on the bottom allow you to change the type of stitch that you can see above. Some of the stitches will need different presser feet. This is a presser foot. For my machine, J is the regular one, which is the one we'll be using today. The presser foot is lowered when sewing to keep the fabric in place. Let's get the thread in. Usually you would slide the thread above on this little stick and use a round stopper to keep it in place, but because my spool is so big, I'll leave it to the side and hook the thread on the thread stick thing so the thread is threaded at the right angle. Each machine will have a slightly different way to thread it, but almost all of them will have a visual guide, so please follow that. I will first wind a bobbin, so follow your guide to hook it around the necessary places and take it to the bobbin winder. This is the only thing I do differently here. They say you should thread your thread around the bobbin a couple times and then through this little hole in your bobbin, but I find that a little bit tedious and a difficult angle to get to, so I found that it works just fine if I wrap the thread around my bobbin about 10 times. Once your thread is around the bobbin, slide it across. This signals to your machine that when you press go, it will wind the bobbin instead of sew. You can now press on your foot pedal to make it go, but if you want to step away, unplug your foot pedal and press the go button. Again, this may be different on your machine, but mine is the bottom button on your bobbin until it stops churning. When it is done, cut the thread, push the bobbin holder back to its original place, and you have your bobbin. Again, your machine should show visually how to install your bobbin. This usually starts with lifting up your plastic plates. Mine shows the direction in which it should be placed and also has a path for the thread to be looped through. There is a blade at the end, so the thread is cut. Put the plastic plate back on and we can move on to threading the machine to sew. Use the same guide to thread your machine through the various hooks. These are numbers, so make sure you don't miss anything. When I get to the actual needle, there is a hook to put my thread through at the top of the needle. I like to hold my thread taut with my left hand and hook it using my right hand. My machine has a needle threader, which is super useful. I can hook the thread on the left, and when I pull the lever, a tiny little hook is pushed through the needle's eye. You can hook your thread through that hook, and when you let go of the lever, it will pull the thread through, and you can continue to pull on this loop until the thread is fully through the eye of the needle. Slide your thread under your presser foot into the back of the machine. If you don't have a needle threader, you can manually thread your thread through from the front of the needle to the back. I like to lick my fingers before rolling the ends of the thread to stop it from fraying too much. To get the bobbin thread to come up, press the needle button once and then once again, or turn the machine handle a few times towards yourself. If your top thread is getting lost and hold on to it while you do this, you may need to lower the needle a few times to get the bobbin thread to come up. Once it does, pull it through. When sewing, you want both of your threads to be pulled to the back of your machine. If this is your first time using your machine, use some scrap fabrics to practice sewing. The most important thing to note when you sew is you want to place your fabric, lower your presser foot. This usually has a lever on the side or the back of your machine. Then lower your needle using the button or the hand wheel. Press gently on your foot pedal to start sewing. At the beginning and the end of a stitching line, you want to press a back button to go backwards a few stitches. This is called a back stitch or a back tack, and it helps lock in the stitches so your thread does not unravel. My machine has 3 buttons. The top is a needle button. This will lower and lift the needle. The middle is a back stitch, and the bottom is to press go on the sewing. The sewing button will just start sewing when you press it, and it will stop when you press it again. It has the same purpose as pushing your foot pedal, so it will not work if your foot pedal is plugged in. Practice as much as you need, and when you're ready, come back to your bunting pattern pieces. If this is your first time sewing, I recommend marking your seam allowance. This is especially useful because we'll be sewing a sharp corner. Use a ruler and a pen to mark the 1/2 inch or 1.3 centimeter line from the raw edge. Line up the line you just drew where the needle is. Lower your presser foot using the lever, then lower the needle using the hand wheel or the button. Press gently on your foot pedal and start sewing. At the beginning, make sure you press the back stitching button for a few stitches so you back stitch and then let go to sew in the correct direction again. You want to use your hands to gently guide the fabric, ensuring the needle is sewing on the line that you just drew. Pull the pins out as you go. To sew a corner like the one that we have, sew all the way up until the 2 stitch lines that you've drawn meet. I like to do the last few stitches by hand using the hand wheel to make sure I get right to the point and not a stitch over. Make sure your needle is in its lowered position, lift the presser foot using the lever and twist your fabric around until the stitching line you haven't sewn is in front of you. Lower the presser foot again and keep sewing as usual. When you get to the end, make sure you do a back stitch using the back stitch button, and when you get all the way to the edge of the fabric, lift your presser foot and the needle if needed, and pull your fabric away from the machine and cut off any excess thread. This is what your piece should look like. Looking at the tip of the corner, cut off the tip as close to the stitching line as possible, making sure you're not actually cutting that stitching. Fold the seam allowance to the inside and turn the bunting panel inside out. There are lots of tools that you can use to push this corner out, but my favorite is the back of this paintbrush. You want something that is pointed but blunt so you don't tear your fabric. You can also use a pin to pull out the small ends that get stuck inside the bunting. This method works for any corners. You now want to give your bunting a good press. I like to use my nails to zhuzh out the sides so that it lays flat, and press it with your iron one side at a time. I'm using a cotton fabric, so that's what my setting is on, but if you're unsure whether or not your settings are correct, I recommend testing it with a scrap piece of fabric. Now is a good time to make a few more of these bunting panels and we can assemble it all together. Your double fold binding will have 3 fold lines. The outer lines will tuck in the raw edges and the middle fold will fold the binding in half. Take your bunting panel, cut the excess little triangle created by the seam allowance and place the top edge right at the middle fold line. You want all the raw edges tucked away. You want the outer folds of the binding to wrap around the bunting panel. The fold lines in the binding should make this really easy. Use pins to keep the binding in place. When placing the bunting panels in the binding, you want to leave a little bit of binding loose at the beginning so we can finish the edge later. About 2 inches or 5 centimeters is enough. Start stitching at the beginning of your binding and backstitch. Line up the stitching line, aka your needle, right on the outer edge of the binding where it meets the bunting panel. Sew a straight line. I like to feed my binding panels as I go, but if you'd rather have pins in, feel free to pin them ahead of time. I like about 1 inch or 2.5 centimeters in between each panel, but I completely eyeball this. It really doesn't have to be perfect. Place your next panel in between the binding folds and continue sewing until all of your bunting panels are sewn in. When you get to the end, back tack and cut off any excess binding. I didn't show it here because I was going to keep adding panels, but keep sewing about another 2 inches or 5 centimeters of the binding so you can finish the end of the bunting. Cut off any excess threads and admire your work. It is totally okay if it's a little bit wonky. If your thread matches your binding, you won't be able to see anything, and if it doesn't, bunting is hung up so high no one will notice anyways. If this is your first sewing project, you should be so proud of how far you've come. There's no explicit need to finish the edges of a binding. People usually like to leave it a little bit longer to be able to create a knot or tie it somewhere, but I like to finish the edges with a double hem. To do this, when you get to the end of your binding, finish the stitching line with a back stitch, cut off any excess threads, fold over the end of the binding over by 1/2 inch or 1.3 centimeters once, and then once again by the same amount, and sew this bit down with a straight stitch, back tacking at the beginning and the end. Cut off any excess threads. If you want to make your own binding, I will show you how. This is great if you don't have any binding on hand, or if you want to make your binding to match your fabric. Bias binding is typically cut on the bias, which is a 45-degree angle of the fabric, but here we're just going to make a regular binding because it does not have to bend or be malleable. Take a piece of fabric that is 2 inches or 5 centimeters wide, and as long as you want your binding to be. Fold it in half lengthways, wrong sides together, and give it a good press. Then open it up, take one of the edges and fold that in half so the raw edge meets the middle fold line that we just created. Press this, being very careful not to press too close to the middle so the middle fold line does not disappear. Repeat this on the other side. Keeping the outer folds folded in, press the binding in half and press one last time to ensure you've not lost the middle fold line, and you're ready to go. It looks just like the store-bought stuff. I will also show you how to use a binding tape maker, but I have to warn you, it is not my favorite way to do this. Judge your binding through the binding maker from the larger side to the smaller side. Please enjoy my struggles here. I like to use a pin in the hole at the bottom to pull it through. It should come out with both ends folded to the middle. You can press the fabric as you pull the binding maker away from the iron to keep creating that fold line. Once you've ironed the whole thing, fold the binding in half lengthways to create the middle fold, and you're ready to go. I really hope you found this tutorial helpful. The pattern with lots of useful information, US letter and A4 printing, large formats, and the projected format, lists of materials, tools, fabric suggestions, all those things are included in the pattern and you can find it for free in the link below. And if you like this bunting, then the dinner party bundle with so many other bunting garland options, letters, characters, numbers, as well as table mats, coasters, and an apron is also linked below. Love you, bye!